Ever wonder what medieval combat was really like? Hollywood shows you shiny swords and epic duels, but the truth is way darker. We're talking about weapons so brutal they could crush armor and shatter bones in one swing. Think a war flail whipping around unpredictably, or an estoc stabbing straight through armor gaps. Let's talk about the terrifying tools of medieval warfare that movies never show. Stick around as we count down the most horrifying weapons designed not just to kill, but to strike pure terror into the enemy. You won't believe what's coming up. What if the best way to kill wasn't swinging a broadsword for dramatic effect, but stabbing with something more like a giant needle? Let's talk about the estoc, a weapon that just laughs at your shiny plate armor. This isn't the flashy blade you see in movies where knights clash with big, wild swings. No, the estoc was all about one thing: getting through your defenses with ruthless efficiency. It's a long, straight, pointy rod of terror. And trust me, you wouldn't want to be on the wrong end of it. Picture yourself as a knight, sitting there in your polished armor, thinking you're pretty much untouchable. You've got layers of steel protecting every inch of you, and you're feeling like a walking tank. Then, out of nowhere, some guy pulls out this skinny, sharp stick that doesn't even look like a proper sword. You're smirking, right? Until you realize this thing, the estoc, is built specifically to find the tiny gaps in your so-called impenetrable defense. Those little joints at your elbows, knees, or even the slit in your helmet visor, they're all fair game, and this weapon is coming for them. Now, you might wonder how a simple thrust could do any real damage when most swords just bounce off plate armor like a rubber ball on concrete. Here's the thing. The estoc's tip is razor sharp and super narrow, designed to sneak right through those weak spots. It's not about smashing or hacking. It's about slipping in where you're vulnerable. A quick jab to the armpit or under a shoulder plate could end things fast. Most weapons needed raw power, but this one? It's all about hitting the right spot at the right time. Here's the kicker. Old fighting manuals from back in the day show that wielding an estoc wasn't about brute strength at all. It was pure precision. Warriors were taught to aim for ridiculously small targets, like the thin gaps near your visor or the joints where armor plates overlap. One well-placed thrust, and you're done for. It didn't just hurt. It could pin you in place or puncture something vital before you even knew what hit you. Talk about a dirty trick on the battlefield. Research tells us estocs were especially nasty against older male armor, the kind made of linked rings, because they could pop right through. But even when plate armor became the norm, a good jab could still shake you up. Maybe it didn't always pierce the metal, but it could knock you off balance or mess with your head long enough for a follow-up attack. Imagine the medieval version of a sniper shot, quiet, precise, and absolutely deadly if it lands just right. One mistake, and your armor isn't saving you. Warriors spent hours training to master this weapon, learning exactly where to aim on a moving, armored enemy. Every thrust turned into a high-stakes game of life and death. Miss by an inch, and you've got nothing. Hit the mark, and your opponent's fancy gear becomes their coffin. You're starting to see why this wasn't just another sword. It was a cold, calculated tool meant to spread fear as much as blood on the battlefield. Here's the real takeaway. Hollywood skips over the estoc because it's not glamorous or showy. There's no epic clash or sparks flying, but its true purpose was brutal, turning your own armor into a death trap by piercing where you'd never expect. Now that you know about this sneaky killer, let's move to a weapon that didn't care about finesse at all, just raw, chaotic destruction. Ever seen a weapon so wild it could hit you from any angle, or even hit its own wielder? Let's talk about the war flail, a medieval wrecking ball on a chain. This isn't the clean, precise tool we looked at before. No, the war flail was pure madness, a weapon that could smash through just about anything if it landed right. You wouldn't believe the havoc this thing caused when swung by someone who knew what they were doing, or didn't. Imagine facing a fighter on the battlefield, and he's got this short stick with a chain attached to a heavy, spiked metal ball. He starts swinging it, whipping that ball around so fast you've got no clue where it's going to land. Is it coming at your head, your side, your legs? You can't tell, and that's the point. The war flail was all about being unpredictable, a total wild card in a fight. 1 second it's flying toward you, the next it's looping around in a crazy arc, making you jump just to avoid getting flattened. Here's where it gets messy. The flail didn't just bash through armor. Its wild path made shields pretty much useless. You try to block it, and the chain just wraps around, letting that spiked ball smack you from some weird angle. But there's a catch. One wrong move, and the guy swinging it could accidentally hit himself. Talk about a gamble. That heavy ball could swing back and crack his own arm, or worse if he lost control for even a split second. Picture this in the heat of battle. That spiked head crashing into a knight's helmet with a sickening thud. The metal dents inward, and whatever's underneath, well, it's not going to be pretty. Skulls cracked like eggshells under the sheer force. This weapon wasn't about finesse. It was raw, blunt power designed to break anything it touched. Whether you're in fancy armor or just a padded tunic, one solid hit could leave you in pieces on the ground. Historical records show flails weren't super common, but when they showed up, they terrified everyone. Some fighters used them just to prove how skilled they were, almost like showing off. The mere sight of a guy confidently swinging this thing could make enemies hesitate, wondering if they even wanted to get close. It wasn't always about actually fighting. Sometimes, just holding a flail was enough to mess with the other side's heads. Think of it as the medieval version of a rogue fire hose. It's powerful and dangerous, sure, but it's just as likely to soak the person using it as the target. You've got to keep that flail moving at high speed with your arms stretched out, or you lose all control. Slow down even a little, and you're wide open for someone to rush in and take you out. Every swing was a risky bet, and it took serious guts to use it without becoming your own worst enemy. You're realizing now, this wasn't just a weapon, it was a psychological nightmare. The chaos it brought to a fight could throw entire lines of soldiers into panic, not knowing how to deal with something so reckless. The big reveal: Hollywood ignores the flail because it's too messy for their neat battle scenes. But its real strength was delivering bone-shattering chaos that didn't just break bodies, it broke morale too. From wild swings to precise hooks, let's shift to a weapon that could yank a knight right off his high horse. What's scarier than a blade that cuts? One that hooks and drags you down. Let's talk about the billhook, a polearm that turned mounted knights into easy targets. This wasn't some fancy sword for dramatic duels. It was a tool, originally for trimming trees and harvesting crops, turned into a nasty weapon of war. Picture a long wooden pole, 5 or 6 feet, with a curved metal blade on the end that looks part hook, part axe. When soldiers got hold of this, it became a game changer against anyone thinking they were safe up on a horse. Imagine you're a proud knight on horseback, looking down on the infantry scrambling below. You've got the height, the speed, and heavy armor, making you feel like nothing can touch you. Then out of the crowd, some foot soldier raises this long stick with a wicked curve at the top. Before you can react, that billhook reaches up, aiming to snag you. It's not just about stabbing or swinging. It's got reach and a design that lets a lowly peasant mess up your whole day from the ground. You're not so high and mighty now, are you? Here's where the tension kicks in. The billhook didn't just slash like a regular blade. That hooked end could latch right onto your armor, your reins, or even the straps holding your gear together. One good yank, and you're off balance, wobbling on your horse. Worse yet, a strong pull could drag you straight down to the dirt. Once you're off that horse, all your fancy training and expensive kit don't mean much. You're just another target, stuck on the ground with angry foot soldiers closing in fast. Think about this for a second. Historical battles show how infantry turned this weapon into a knight's nightmare. They'd use it to hook riders right out of the saddle, flipping a cavalry charge into a messy, fatal tumble. A knight's strength was being mounted, riding over enemies with power and speed. But when a bunch of guys with billhooks started pulling them down, that advantage vanished. Suddenly, you're not charging. You're crawling in the mud, hoping to get back up before a blade finds you. Research points out that late medieval armies leaned hard on billhooks to counter heavy cavalry, especially in cramped, muddy fields like those at Agincourt. In tight spaces or sloppy terrain, horses couldn't maneuver well, and knights got bogged down. That's when these pole arms shone, letting infantry outreach and outmaneuver riders who thought they'd just trample everyone. It wasn't pretty, but it worked. Foot soldiers could swarm, hooking and yanking until the cavalry was nothing but chaos. Picture it as the medieval version of a tow truck, except instead of saving you, it's dragging you to your doom. Wielders didn't always aim to kill outright. They'd target legs, straps, or anything they could catch to unseat the enemy. Sometimes they'd even hook the horse itself, tripping it up or slowing it down. Every cavalry charge turned into a risky bet. Would you make it through, or get snagged and dropped hard? It's no wonder knights started rethinking their tactics. You're starting to get why this weapon changed everything, especially for foot soldiers staring down armored giants on horses. Here's the eye-opener. Hollywood skips the billhook for flashy swords, but its real terror was toppling knights, stripping away their battlefield dominance. From dragging down riders to hammering through defenses, let's look at a weapon that combined brute force with deadly versatility. What if one weapon could bash, hook, and stab all at once? Let's talk about the lucerne hammer, a polearm that was like a Swiss Army knife for destroying armored foes. This isn't the kind of thing you'd see in a movie with knights swinging huge swords for show. No, this was a long, practical tool, about 6 feet or more, with a head that meant business. On one side, a flat hammer for smashing, on the other, a sharp spike or hook for nasty follow-ups. You wouldn't believe how much damage this thing could do. Imagine going up against a fighter holding this long staff topped with a hammer on one side and a mean-looking spike on the other. You're in your heavy armor, thinking you're safe, but this guy's got reach and options. He can swing from a distance, way out of your sword's range, aiming to ruin your day before you even get close. That hammer end isn't just for looks, it's heavy enough to make you wish you'd stayed home. And if that spike or hook catches you, good luck staying on your feet. Here's where it gets rough. Against plate armor, most swords just didn't cut it, bouncing off or barely leaving a scratch. But the lucerne hammer? It delivered crushing blows that could dent metal like a tin can under a boot. Even if it didn't break through, one hit to your chest or arm could knock the wind out of you or mess up your balance. Then there's that hooked spike, perfect for jabbing into joints like knees or elbows, places your armor doesn't cover so well. It's a double threat, and you're stuck guessing which end is coming at you. Picture a battlefield straight out of history. Old fighting manuals called fechtbuches describe warriors swinging these hammers to smash helmets flat, turning a knight's headgear into a crumpled mess. Or they'd use the hook to yank enemies off balance, tugging at an arm or leg to make them stumble before finishing the job with a hard strike. It wasn't just about landing random hits. It was about breaking down the enemy piece by piece, making every swing count in the chaos of war. Historical studies show it wasn't all about raw power either. Technique mattered a ton. Fighters trained to aim for specific spots, like the knee to stop you from moving or the elbow to ruin your ability to swing back. They didn't always go for the kill right away. Sometimes disabling you was enough, leaving you helpless for whoever came next. Talk about a cold way to fight, picking apart armored soldiers like they're puzzles to solve. Think of it as the medieval version of a wrecking crew. One good hit from the hammer side could cave in your chest plate, making it hard to even breathe, while the hook could yank you around like a rag doll. You're not just getting hit, you're getting manhandled from 5 feet away. It's the kind of weapon that made you rethink charging headfirst into a line of foot soldiers holding these things. Using it took real skill, though. You had to balance reach and control, swinging or thrusting without overextending yourself, especially in tight formations where one wrong move left you open. You're seeing why this wasn't a simple club. It was a calculated tool for dismantling even the toughest defenses. Here's the real shocker. Hollywood avoids the lucerne hammer because it's not glamorous. But its brutal mix of blunt force and control made it a knight's worst nightmare. We've covered some terrifying tools, so let's wrap up with why these weapons paint a darker picture of medieval combat than any movie ever could. Here's the final thought. These weapons, from the estoc's deadly precision to the lucerne hammer's raw power, show medieval combat was a brutal, desperate fight for survival, not a fairy tale duel. If this opened your eyes to the gritty reality of history, hit that like button, share your thoughts below, and subscribe for more unfiltered looks at the past. You wouldn't believe how much darker it gets. Let's keep uncovering the stuff Hollywood won't show. There's plenty more terror where this came from, and I've got stories that'll make your jaw drop waiting for you.